Limerence is an intense emotional state where a person becomes deeply obsessed with another person, often in a romantic way, but not always based on reality. It is stronger than a normal crush and can feel almost overwhelming. When someone experiences limerence, their mind keeps returning to the person again and again. They might replay conversations, imagine future scenarios, or constantly wonder what the other person thinks about them. Even small interactions like a message or a glance can feel extremely important and meaningful. The feelings become stronger when the person is not sure if the other person likes them back. This uncertainty creates a kind of emotional tension that keeps the brain highly engaged. It is not just about liking someone, it is about needing emotional confirmation from them. Physically and mentally, it can feel similar to addiction. The brain releases chemicals linked to reward and motivation, which makes thinking about that person feel exciting and sometimes even necessary. At the same time, it can also cause anxiety, especially if the feelings are not returned. What makes limerence interesting is that the person often builds an idealized version of the other person. They focus on positive traits and may ignore flaws. So the experience is not only about the real person, but also about the image created in the mind. Most people experience some level of this at least once in their life, especially during teenage years or early adulthood, but it can happen at any age. Limerence usually begins in a very subtle way. It might start with a simple attraction or curiosity about someone. At first it feels normal, but then the mind slowly begins to give that person more and more importance. One moment often plays a big role. It could be a meaningful conversation, eye contact, or a small act of kindness. The brain marks that moment as special and starts attaching emotional value to it. After that, the person begins to stand out compared to everyone else. As time goes on, thoughts about them become more frequent and harder to control. This is not something people usually choose. It happens automatically. The brain starts treating any interaction or sign as a clue. A delayed reply can cause worry, while a quick response can create a strong feeling of happiness. People in limerence often change their behavior without fully realizing it. They may put more effort into their appearance, check their phone often, or try to be in places where they might see that person. They might also analyze their own words after conversations, thinking about what they said and how it was received. Another important part is emotional dependence. Their mood can start to depend on how the other person reacts. A positive interaction can make the whole day feel better, while a negative or unclear one can bring sadness or confusion. At the same time, people often hide these feelings. They might act normal on the outside, while experiencing a very intense, emotional world inside. This creates a contrast between what others see and what the person is actually going through. The reason limerence feels so powerful is deeply connected to how the brain is built to seek connection and reward. The brain has systems that are designed to focus attention on things that feel important for survival or emotional fulfillment. When a person becomes the focus of limerence, the brain starts treating them like something highly valuable. This means more attention, more energy, and more emotional weight is given to anything related to them. One key factor is unpredictability. When the brain does not know what will happen, next it becomes more alert. If the person sometimes shows interest and sometimes does not, the brain becomes even more engaged. This pattern is similar to how people can get hooked on games or rewards that are not consistent. Another part is imagination. The brain does not clearly separate reality from imagined scenarios when it comes to emotions. So when someone in limerence imagines conversations or future moments, the brain can react as if those things are actually happening. This strengthens the emotional attachment even without real interaction. There is also a strong link to personal meaning. The person experiencing limerence may connect the other person to their own desires, such as feeling valued, understood, or important. So it is not only about the other person, but also about what they represent emotionally. At times, limerence can feel confusing because it mixes excitement and stress. The same person can be the source of happiness and anxiety. This emotional intensity is what makes the experience feel so real and hard to ignore. Even though it feels uncontrollable, it is actually a natural process that comes from how the brain learns attaches and searches for meaningful connection. Limerence does not stay the same forever. Even though it can feel endless in the moment, it usually changes or fades over time. One way it fades is through clarity. If the person finds out clearly that the feelings are not returned, the brain slowly stops holding on to uncertainty. At first, this can feel painful, but over time, the emotional intensity begins to decrease because there is no longer a question to solve. Another way it changes is through fulfillment. If the feelings are returned and a real relationship begins, the limerence often transforms into a more stable emotional connection. The intense obsession usually calms down and is replaced by deeper but less overwhelming feelings. It can also fade through distance. When there is less contact, fewer reminders, and less mental focus on the person, the brain gradually reduces its emotional investment. This does not happen instantly, but it becomes easier as time passes. Something important that helps the process is shifting attention. When a person starts focusing on other parts of life like hobbies, goals, or new social connections, the mind has less space to keep repeating the same thoughts. Over time, the idealized image of the person also becomes more realistic. The brain begins to notice flaws or simply loses the strong emotional charge it once had. What once felt extremely important can start to feel more neutral or distant. Even though limerence can feel intense, it is usually temporary. It is part of how humans experience attraction and emotional learning, and for most people it eventually settles into something calmer or disappears completely. It can be difficult to tell the difference between limerence and normal attraction because both involve liking someone, but there are some clear signs that point to limerence. One of the biggest signs is how often the person is on your mind. In normal attraction, you think about someone sometimes, but in limerence, the thoughts feel constant and intrusive. They can appear even when you're trying to focus on something else. Another sign is emotional intensity. Small things feel very big. A short message can create strong happiness, while no response can cause noticeable anxiety or sadness. The emotional reactions are often stronger than the situation would normally justify. There is also a strong need for reassurance. In limerence, the person may feel a deep urge to know how the other person feels about them. Uncertainty becomes uncomfortable, and the mind keeps searching for clear signs of interest or rejection. Idealization is another clue. The person is often seen in an almost perfect way. Flaws are ignored or minimized, and their positive traits are amplified in the mind. It can feel like they are uniquely special compared to everyone else. People in limerence also tend to analyze everything. They might replay conversations many times or try to interpret the meaning behind words, tone, or behavior. Even very small details can feel important. Finally, there is a sense of lack of control. The person may realize that their thoughts or reactions are exaggerated, but still feel unable to stop them. This feeling of being mentally pulled towards someone is a key part of limerence. Recognizing these signs can help a person understand their own experience more clearly and see that what they're feeling is a known psychological pattern rather than something random or unique.